Hello YouTube, we are continuing with We Show Never Surrenders program today, and the review goes on with the upper body day. I covered the entire scope of the demands and requests and the first lower body, so now it's about day 2. So as far as the first upper day goes, he starts with a floor press and a bench press. So he alternates between the two. And he does 4 sets of 10. Same logic as with the previous video. 4 sets of 10 I'm not a big fan of. I don't recommend that type of rep range for hypertrophy. You want progression. So it's a very common mistake that people who want to train for size do is they just want volume. But volume by itself, if there's no progression drive within the rep scheme, you're leaving some gains on the table, right, in the long run because you want to progress. And it's fine to have that type of rep range as a later set in the workout, but it should be avoided like the plague if it's your strength work. The strength work is where you need to progress. And so if the rep range is not set up towards progression, then you're never going to. I also have an issue with floor press and bench press because they're not the same lift. They shouldn't be used in rotation. I explained that in number 1. If you want to have both, you should have both, but they shouldn't coexist within the same day because they don't train the same qualities. For example, for me, I do squat and I do front squat with a box. They're both knee flexions, but they don't train the same quality. So I have them on separate days, and it allows me to have a day where I'm still going to train a knee flexion, but it's not going to be as quad dominant than a normal squat, in a sense, in terms of damage inflicted to the area and specificity, especially in terms of depth. And it's going to apply the same here. On the floor press, unless you really have good leverages, you're never going to touch your chest. So you're not training the chest as much, or it's not going through the same deep range of motion. So it can actually be a good way to have a day that's going to be more chest specific and a day that might be more tricep specific that you open with the floor press. You could also have a day that is just none of what I just described, which is what I do with the box squat, where it's my only flexion of the day and then I just hammer the posterior chain. You could do something like this. But I would say to just focus on the bench press in this case. Because from what I see in the program, because it's an upper lower day, you're only getting 2 horizontal presses a week. So you really want them to be deep. So just stick with the bench for this one. We'll make you do floor presses later if you want, if it's a lift you like, but you don't need it right now. You follow that with weighted chin-ups and or neutral weighted neutral pull-ups. Very good. You do 4 sets of 10. I'm not against that for weighted pull-ups in a sense, but same logic. And here, actually, the variation is fine. Why? Because no matter what grip you use, you're doing pull-ups. So you're staying within a very closed range of specificity. Actually, it's a good thing to rotate the grips. Why? For tendon health. Because a lot of people find that when they really start hammering vertical pulls, what gives is not their back. It's not the ability of their upper back to handle the volume or the stress. It's the kinetic chain, connective chain, sorry. It's the arms. They're just ropes that you pull with, right? The issue is that tendons of the shoulders or the elbow can get aggravated over time. So it's great to rotate the grip. Keep doing that. After that, you do ring dips or overhead press. Same thing here. You only get 2 days a week of vertical presses. Vertical presses and presses in general need a lot of volume, especially at the stage you're at. For most people, it's not going to be something that might put you in a hole in terms of recovery. So you should really just keep the overhead press there. That being said, because you need to still be specific and technical enough for your calisthenics, I'm going to find a way to put the ring dips somewhere. So I'm going to keep that in mind. And as far as the rep range, 4 sets of 12, so it's a tonnage of 48. It's a lot. And again, it's too much. Especially with the overhead press. The overhead press needs to be fed a mixture of intensity and volume if you want to progress, especially because it's a lift that you are going to progress on very slowly. The only lift that is slower than that is curls, pretty much, because of the muscles involved in the lift. So I would really advise you stick with lower rep ranges, and since you have 2 days, both your upper days have overhead press, have one day with volume, a quality of volume, and one day with a quality of intensity, instead of always doing high volume, which doesn't promote progression. After that, you elevated pike push-ups, you do 4 sets of 8, which is funny because the one lift where you go lower in intensity is something like a pike push-up. Usually with calisthenic movements, I always tell people just don't even count. Just do as many as you can. Of course, it's just my mentality, it's just because I've always felt that you go back to baseline so easily on the calisthenic movements that if you've done your job properly and you pre-fatigued yourself because you're someone who could, especially you, could handle bodyweight movements until the cows came home, if you're pre-fatigued, you're going to find that your ability to recover from those calisthenic movements, even in an AMRAP set, is going to be strong, but not strong enough that you can just keep doing sets and nothing happens. Eventually, you just tap out. But 4 sets of 8 is still valid. After that, you do ring support holds. 3 sets of 30 seconds. I like that you also integrate seconds in your workouts. A lot of people don't do that. They do sets of reps, but you can do more than that. You could do holds for weight and for time. It's especially beneficial, I find, for grip strength and calisthenic movements. After that, you do banded face pulls, 2 sets of 20. You do banded bicep curls, 2 sets of 20. And you do banded tricep extensions, 2 sets of 20. Well, you know what, my friend? What we're going to be doing is, I'm going to take your ring dips that you alternated with the overhead press, and we're going to make a giant push-up of pike push-ups, ring dips, and ring support holds. When you do a when you do a superset, always make sure that it saves you time in a multitude of ways, in multiple ways. It's going to save you time. Why? Because it's a superset, so you don't wait in between the sets, and you just you fire them one after the other. And also, if you're going to use rings, make sure that the exercise that you use the rings for are in the same superset. Saves you time from installation, moving the stuff, etc. So you're going to superset that. You can start with whatever you think is better for muscular endurance, but I would personally advise ring dips, elevated pike push-ups, then ring support hold, rest a little bit, rinse and repeat, and you do 3 to 4 sets. And right after that, we get with another superset, which is banded face pulls, banded bicep curls. So same logic, you already have the band ready. Might be a little bit different here because for the banded curl, you might have to have the band low, and for the face pulls, you might have to have the band high. But if you think about it, you could just do a variation where you do a face. If you want the band low for the bicep curls, you can do face pulls with an angle in your torso. Might be interesting to try. And if it's high because you want to do standard face pulls, you could just do curls like this, where you're going to be to the side, you're going to grab that band, and from the top, bring it here. It's something worth trying. And after that, that's it for the day. So this is going to be a good way to recreate, remodel your program without having you spend 15 hours in the gym, because what we're going to be doing is bench press as strength work, followed up by weighted chins, followed up by overhead press. So that's your strength work. You're going to be completely cooked after that, and your upper back and upper body in general is going to be cooked. And then you have your 2 supersets and you go home. But for you, your home gym is home, so you go in the kitchen or something. Okay. And as far as the muscle groups worked, it's a good upper body day. Might be a little bit lacking on the traps, but traps, most people are going to work them on the lower day, which, if you understand what I spoke about with semantics, makes a little sense, because technically it's the upper part of the body that you train on the lower, but it doesn't really matter. I do see long head of the tricep being a little bit neglected though. So just be careful with that. We're going to see if it's a trend, but as far as forearms, it should be okay. Triceps, everything get a lot of work, so that's okay. Okay, after that you have your second lower body day, and you start with a front squat. That's perfectly good, and in a sense, you're doing what I told you to do, which is if you want to have lifts that complement each other in the same movement pattern, have them in separate days. Front squat, I will make a video about it. I love them. I love doing them personally. I don't think it's a good time investment because they're super technical. But if you know how to do them already, please keep doing them by all means. So that's a good start. After that, do sumo deadlifts or deficit, which I suppose is deficit conventional. Same logic as with the first video. These are not in the same category. They should not rotate in the same section of set. It doesn't make sense. And as I told you, focus on one style. So if you want to focus on sumo deadlift, do sumo deadlifts. And if you want to focus on conventional, do deficit conventionals. After that, you do block pulls. So here you might run into the issue of doing a deficit conventional and then a conventional block pull. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. Is it smart? Not necessarily. Why? Because the deficit is going to tire your lower back, and it's something that I see too often with people who do block pulls or rack pulls. They think, oh, I'm cutting the lower portion of the range, so I'm fine, even if my lower back is tired. The issue is that the same people, the second they initiate the pull, they round over. So if it's not your case, by all means do it, because these two lifts complement each other, because the deficit pull is going to mostly work the posterior chain in a deeper, because your hips are deeper, so you use more legs, quads, etc. And the block pull uses more upper back. So if they can work together, work together. If they can't, I would say apply the same logic I told you about with the high bar squat and the pose squat. You can just have them happen on a different day. See, if you told me I'm going to rotate deficit deadlifts and block pulls, I would say, okay, now that's better. You're going to still get them in a frequency of once every 8 days. So you're basically getting the benefit of potentially having another lower body day in the same template I explained to you, but without having it actually existing within the program. So you don't have to add another week to the program. You still get your 8 days and the lifts repeat themselves. Very important when you program, you don't really want a lift to only appear in the program every 15 days. That's not enough practice, unless it's so close in specificity with something else that it just gets strained, and you know your form is going to be clean, so no matter what happens. After that, as far as the sets go, front squats 4x10, I'm actually not, I don't hate it. Why? Because when you do that with a front squat, it's the main issue with it. It's an issue only if you don't know how to work around it, but your thoracic strength is for 90% of people, 95%, is going to give up before your legs do. I rarely see people fail a front squat and just fall back down with a perfect rack. Usually what happens is they round over and their rack gives. Their legs could still be pushing. So when you do a 4x10, you are still going to handle a weight that's interesting for intensity, but I find that at that weight, you have the ability to readjust your rack in between sets. So you basically artificially strengthen that thoracic extension and you get a chance to actually let the legs fail. I personally don't do that. I always do 5 reps on the front squat, always. But here a 4x10 is not terrible. For the deficit deadlift, I really like the 3x8. And I think a 3x8 on the block pull is also excellent. That being said, 3x10 works too. Of course, evolving rep ranges, if you can manage to integrate them in your programs, would be better, in my opinion. After that, you do toes to bar raises, you do 3 to 10. These are very difficult. After that, you do L-sit rings. So another thing that is going to tire the abs. So I might not be able to make you superset these two. Then you do calf raises, 3 to 15. 3 sets of 15, and then you do barbell lunges, 3 sets of 12. So what I would actually like you to do is, you're going to superset your deficit deadlifts with toes to bar raises, and you're going to superset the block pulls with L-sit rings. The logic behind that is, you're going to train both qualities of the abs, because on the deficit, there's going to be more flexion. So for example, I would advise you to superset the deficit with the L-sit rings, which is going to be more contraction, and you're going to superset the block pulls, which is more contraction, with the toes to bar raises, which is more flexion. You can try it. It is not going to make your core give out, meaning it's not going to damage your ability to move the weight on the compound and have a rigid spine. Quite the opposite. It's going to make you feel your abs, and it might give you a better connection with your bracing, especially with the block pulls. So I really advise you to do that, and it's going to provide the benefit of spinal decompression in between sets, which it's bro science, but I personally always like to do that because I always find that the spine, and especially the SI joint area, is at its most flexible and shapeable state when you're warm. You feel the benefits of the decompression much better. And it's the same logic with when should you decompress your spine? When should you do, for example, dead hangs? At the start of the workout before your deadlifts, or at the end? At the end. Why? First, because you compress the spine with the deadlift, so there's something to decompress, and two, because you're warm. You don't want to start doing that when you're cold because you could actually hurt yourself. So very good day. I really like that setup. And then I would highly encourage you to superset the calf raises with the barbell lunges, because why not? I will always tell people to superset stuff. It saves you time, and you will find that it replaces cardio in a sense. If you do it like intensely enough with no break, it's not going to damage your muscular ability to produce strength, but it will challenge you. It will challenge the entire body. So again, same logic. I'm trying to compress your lower body days too, because I always say you don't need your lower body days to take 15 hours. They should be they should have the highest tonnage, but they should be taking the least amount of time, because you're going to be tired and you don't want to have to do another 4 sets of lower body lifts when you're tired. Which is also why those barbell lunges, here it's not the same logic as with the Bulgarian split squats of the first lower day, because you didn't do many knee flexions here as compared to day 1. So it's actually a good thing. And then your last day, which is upper body day 2, you start with a close grip bench, which is an excellent variation of the bench, the regular bench, and it's full range of motion. It's a deeper range of motion than a normal bench. So perfect. 4 sets of 8, I actually like that rep range. You should give 4 sets of 6 to 10 a try on close grip bench. I think it's phenomenal for progression. Amazing. After that, overhead press, and I see that on this overhead press thing, you do 4 sets of 10. So you did reduce your reps to be more intense. Reduce it more, even more than that. Do something like 4 sets of 5 or 6. After that, ring chin-ups, neutral grip, or neutral grip with a bar, so more vertical pulls, excellent. You do wall handstand push-ups, ring rows. So the wall handstand push-ups, I see 4 sets of 6, which I suppose means that they're tough for you, so keep them in that rep range. You do AMRAPs with the body weight pull-ups, keep doing that. Ring rows, you do 4 sets of 12, very good. Ring rows, you want to stay in those rep ranges, or do AMRAPs. Bend tricep push downs 2 to 20, so that's excellent. And bend bicep curls 2 to 20. Same logic here. I'm going to be supersetting a ton of things because I don't see many issues with that day. I think it's an excellent day. You can superset the chin-ups with the wall handstand push-ups if you wanted. And then ring rows, tricep push downs, and bicep curls need to be supersetted. And because on that day, I see it's sort of the same logic as with the previous day, but on the previous upper body day, your first superset had 3 exercises. This time it only has 2, so I'm going to tell you to push the tricep push downs and the bicep curls into the 4 sets range. You're going to do 4 sets to match the ring rows. And I do that, why? Because you have, after that, a full weekend to recover until your next upper body, so you can really go ham, is what I mean, and it's not going to be an issue. So that's that. That's the review for what you sent me. I think that it's a good program. I just corrected some tendencies. You have to rotate lifts that shouldn't be rotated, and to try to do too much, which it's very common. People who just want to do too much, and it's interesting too because when I look at your program, looks fairly minimalistic, right? It's still too much. with the exercise selection, with the tendency to want to do too many exercises on the same session, instead of potentially modifying the rep ranges to be doing a little bit more or to be doing a little bit less reps but in more intense windows of intensity, I've always found that that is normal because we tend to be greedy with programming. We want to do everything. We're like, oh, that lift does this, that lift does that, let me do everything. But it's counterproductive because you're going to end up doing a lot of useless movements where you're not really in it anymore and your body isn't in it either. So I hope you take to heart the corrections I made because I do think that they make your program better, and it's a program that's already good from the start because there is progressive overload, compound movements, good exercise selection, excellent, and I need to commend you on that one, excellent body part split presentation in the sense where every single day has a good selection of body parts being trained. Most of it is very synergistic, so that's excellent. And as I told you before, when I look at the entire program, the only thing I could see potentially lacking in the future are your traps, because they're the only ones that don't get much love. You could even say forearms, but you do a ton of vertical pulls, and unless you really want to focus on them more in the future, then maybe we will add some wrist curls and some wrist flexion, but the program is complete. If you keep eating, you no need to super bulk, but keep eating, keep feeding the gains, keep progressing on that program, you will see a lot of results in terms of muscular hypertrophy. So I would suggest that you forget about those hypertrophy blocks and strength blocks. If you really want to focus on bodybuilding for a while, stay with that for like 7-8 months and then report back. And I'm going to close the video on that. As far as the question you asked about, should I add a fifth day? With the way the program is already structured and the way I modified it too, your tonnage is set up in a way where it's going to pyramid up at the end of the week, and that's really a good thing because after that you get a bunch of time to recover and start again. From what I see here, this is good. Keep doing 4 days. You don't need to do more. You get plenty of work done here. The only thing I would say is if you really want a fifth day, the fifth day should be a full body day, meaning that it's going to be an arm day disguised as a full body day, where we're going to make you come in, we're going to make you work a little bit on the lower body as well, and we're going to make you have a focus on your arms because in the long term, if you want to have bigger bicep, bigger tricep, bigger forearms, you will have to have a day dedicated to them. And on that day, we can always throw in 1 or 2 variations of lower body. It's an issue, why? Because I don't like the idea of having to warm up both upper and lower body. It takes a lot of time. And I don't know if you have that time. Maybe you want to spend that time doing something else. So we'll see where we go. But this fifth day is not important for overall progression. Let me just say it like this. You don't need it. It's if you just want those extra gains at some point and you want the flexibility to maybe reduce some of the weights you're moving and the volume and tonnage of the other days. It's a joker, right? The possibility of a fifth day on this lower upper template exists. It's not necessary now. But if one day you think that something is missing, we will schedule you a fifth day and work on it together. You'll send another program and I'll review it with you. But that's going to be that for the day. I hope it was helpful, and keep working hard, keep excelling at calisthenics, and keep getting bigger as well. Have a good day.